Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock, practicing necromancer. And today I kind of want to bring to you some Nordic wisdom. In the old world, there was celestials or those of the heavens versus those of the underworld. Just like in Christianity, just like in Middle Eastern, the JCI, Judo Christian institutions. And a lot of people, they really don't understand the concept of balance. And I thought through today's video, I would kind of show you that balance and kind of give you some perspectives, if you will. And this is going to be through mythology, but it is also going to be real world applications and that of biblical. So I figure we'll start off with the biblical first, since everybody seems to want to know about the Bible and rant about it. So let's just look at a couple of things that most religions today have some kind of founding father figure, be it God, be it Satan, be it, say, for an example, Hora Mazda in Zoroastrianism, you know, be it Ra in Egyptian, you know, and it's kind of funny that every single religion out there, it doesn't matter if it's the cult of Isis or the cult of Anubis or whatever, they all speak to an overall God figure that seems to see himself as being superior or almighty. And it doesn't matter if it's Jahannam, not Jahannam, but let's go with Allah. It doesn't matter if it's Allah, Jehovah, Yeshua. It doesn't matter what name you put on it, it's there. So in biblical, no matter what Bible you have going back to the original Bible, okay, the overall God seems to have created the world, okay, much like the tree of life and death, if you will. So when we look at this, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, we see how God created the heavens and the earth, okay? This basically aligns with Norse mythology, where the overall Godfather basically created Niflheim, and I probably butchered this name, and I do apologize if I did, um, and that of Muspelheim. Mus, how do you pronounce that? It's Muspelheim, because I believe it's how you pronounce it. Heim, because it's Heim at the end. Okay. And then you have, of course, in the center of all this, the land of the gods or the land of the dead, or however the hell you want to put it. Okay. So let's take a look at this for an example. In Catholic lore, you have their God, ruler of the multiverse, okay, the overall supreme being. And he's in opposition to Satan. Satan, Hebrew, the adversary, the accuser in Jewish folklore. Okay, and so you have heaven and hell, the celestial realm versus the underworld, the lake of fire, the and brimstone, torture, disease, whatever you want to fucking call it. Okay, so and they're all working towards what is known as the end of days. They're always in conflict. They've got to be in conflict because there's no profit in war, right? So you got to have warfare to keep things interesting. And it's always about women. It's always about monetary items such as land, minerals, women, stuff like that. And so you see people fighting for to be deemed worthy of something. There's no balance there anymore, which kind of sucks if you think about it. But here it is. So even in the New Age Christianity, it's a lot different from that of Roman and Catholic monotheism, okay? Where you have heaven, hell, and in between, you have what is known as purgatory. Purgatory in the center, okay? Now, according to their folklore and their mythology, purgatory is where you go to wait your final judgment, if you will. Now, if you follow Hollywood produced, propaganda such as the TV show Supernatural, purgatory is where all these so-called supernatural beings go, where they won't do any harm to the rest of the multiverse. They're literally trapped there. It's a prison. It's a jail. It's a permanent jail. And in a past video, I did clarify the difference between hell and the lake of fire and brimstone. Okay. Just like I showed you the difference between purgatory and those. So you got the jail and then you got the actual prison, the home of the demons and stuff like that. Well, where did they get this stuff? Okay. First of all, let me go into mainstream JCI. In mainstream JCI, this is where you have Michael versus Lucifer. Okay. Or in this case, Jesus versus Lucifer. Okay. And it's ironic because the fact that in the old days, Lucifer was associated with Venus, and in Latin, he was known as the light bringer. Now, in ancient Greek, Lucifer was associated with the dark star, okay? The dark star, the dark planet, if you will. And if you follow astronomy, Venus happens to be the first star or the first planet that you see in the morning. Okay. This is why during January and February, you see a lot of upheaval, especially within warfare, natural disasters, and a whole bunch of other very bad stuff, if you will, such as wildfires and murders and earthquakes and storms, not just political upheavals. So, knowing this, every single application has the land of fire. And when you think of the land of fire, you think of Norse mythology. And Muspelheim, Heim, however the hell you want to pronounce it, um, is called the land of fire. And it was one of two realms that this supreme being supposedly created. The other is called Niflheim. Okay, Niflheim, or M rather. And this particular realm was considered to be dark and dreary. It was the land of the dead, if you will. So the first two realms that this supreme God creates is either heaven or hell, with our realm in the middle, purgatory type thing in the middle. Okay. So you have the land of the dead and the land of demons. First two places that you create. And then you create a realm called Asgard, the celestial city, the celestial realm of the gods. Okay. Now, like I said, you can go into Greek, you can go into Slavic, Egyptian, Roman, you can go into Aztec, Mayan, mythology, folklore. You can go into Buddhism, you can go into Hinduism, you can go into shamanism, necromancy, whatever. You're going to see the conflict between heaven and hell. Okay, so when you look at this, they're all working towards either Ragnarok, which is the end of days, or you're going to see that of the book of Revelations in the Bible, where Satan supposedly is going to lose, according to mainstream JCI propaganda. Okay, and now where do they get this stuff from? And it's funny because if you look at Hollywood produced films, you always have some overabundance good guy that finally gets an epiphany of enlightenment and crushes that of a dark evil being. Okay, look at the Pope's Exorcist by starring Russell Crowe, or say Julian Sands in the original Three Warlock series. And be honest, huge fan of Julian Sands' work. I love his vocabulary and the way he spoke in that old tongue. I really admired that. Respected that guy. I still do, even though he's gone. And then you have all these other exorcism, the exorcist type movies. You have the Ouija board movies. You got shows like The Witches of East End, Charmed. Uh, movies, both the original and the remake of Satanic. You know, there every single show is the exact same thing, where you got good versus evil, and good is always reigning supreme. So is that not considered to be ego? Is that not considered to be prideful? Sinful even in that train of thought. Because if you think about it, study the Norse mythology of Ragnarok, where the demon lord known as what was his name, Sirti, I believe it was Sirti, the father of even Wymir. I believe his name was Surt or Sirti, something like that. I think it was like Surt or something like that. And supposedly he rises up and destroys Asgard. Okay, look at Thor, starring what's his name there, that guy that's now into weightlifting and working out. Oh yeah, apparently he's got his own workout routine now, and everybody wants to be like him, just like the guy that played, Christian, the guy Christian Bale or Arnold Schwarzenegger. They've all got their own workout routine, and everybody wants to look up to them and be like them. So much for being an individual. You know what I'm saying? So when we look at this, when we look at this, it's funny because Ragnarok is at the center of this. It's always about working towards that outcome, that revelation, that end of days mentality, where all evil is supposedly stomped out for like 1,000 years. And it's like, okay, let's look at this through mythology for a moment. You have Ra versus Osiris in some of the tales in Egyptian. Even Seth was considered to be the overall bad guy. He was a warrior. So if we look at it this way, Ra was this great serpent, this sun god, right? Because he could tower over rodents and smaller beings. And it was said that he poisoned Osiris, the mate of Isis, which in return furthered her mythology, and she became associated with Anubis, the lord of the underworld, the lord of the dead. And she learned necromantic rites to bring her husband, her mate, back together. Okay? So, how did this supreme being get all this wisdom? In Norse mythology, it was said that Odin plucked out his own eye to gain infernal wisdom, the art of seership. Thor, the god of thunder. Tyr, the god of war. Hmm. How about Freya, the mystic? Loki, the trickster. Look at the embodiments of these beings and how they appear throughout the world's mythology. And then look at Christianity and see how they moved through the world, through each region, dominating, conquering as a warrior race. And then you wonder why you have the Ashes, why you have the Knights of Templar, why the next stage was the witch trials, the burning times, the persecutions. How is this not the same thing being revamped with a pretty new bow? Hmm. Well, let's see. God versus Satan, Job chapter 1, where it was Satan that strolled into God's kingdom and said, and I quote, "Your people are not living right for you." Now, who was it that sent Satan after Job to begin with? Oh, right. That was the Christian God. Wow. You can do whatever you want to him, but you cannot kill him. But yet, supposedly, Satan has been dubbed a murderer. He's only interested in murdering you. Really? Well, if God sent Satan to bring trials and tests upon his people and said, you can do whatever you want to this person, but do not kill. Do not kill. Hmm. So how can he be a murderer? Well, let's go into a different formality here. Michael versus Lucifer. Hmm. Michael, depending which era, in which language, which tongue you're speaking in, his name means something different. Hebrew, Michael, he who is like God. Medieval Latin, Pig Latin, as it's known today, means soul collector, collector of souls. Kind of like Moloch, if you think about it. After he he's known as the Prince of the Valley of Tears, right? So if we think about this, Michael is just another soul collector. And then, and then, and then you have what is known as Sanskrit, face of love. So Michael has evolved into being this warrior angel. Even the Necronomicon put forth by H.P. Lovecraft, it was supposedly written by an individual, a monk nonetheless, from centuries ago, known as the Mad Arab, wrote about various different dimensional beings. I mean, hell, even Simon and Donald Tyson clarified this. I mean, Tyson's work is more sci-fi and fictional, but if you think about, the world's mythology and how things have evolved, depending on whichever tongue is being spoken about them, because when you translate a name, it gets corrupted and it becomes something of a different meaning, a different purpose, especially when the stories are written by the victors. So you actually have to go back before those times to even have a wedge of understanding of what these vocabulary definitions actually mean. So knowing this, we can go back before Christianity, before monotheism and polytheism, and go into things like Zoroastrianism, where you have Ahura Mazda, the mad god, versus that of Ahriman, the black god. In ancient Greek, you have Phosphoros, the day star, versus that of Hespios, the dark star. Okay, go into Slavic, you have Belobog and Chernobog. Go back into Norse mythology, Nordic folklore and traditions. You have the supreme god known as Odin, the father of the gods, and then you have Thor versus Loki, and many of these traditions. Now, the very embodiment of Satan and his so-called kingdom was based off salt in Norse mythology, the land of fire, the land or realm of fire. And the realm of the dead is at one end of the spectrum, and the land of fire is at the other end of the spectrum. And in dead center, you have what is known as Asgard. And then you have all the other realms between these two focal points, these three focal points. Okay. So if you think about the theory and practice of the world's religions, today you see the equal armed cross variation of good versus evil, heaven versus hell. But back then, think of it as a journey. It was like a rite of passage. A man in the imperial fleet of England, for an example, and history actually teaches this when you're in school, and I think a lot of people forget about this one terminology, is that a man would go off to war and return a man. If you did not join an army, you are not considered a man. Okay? If you did not join the navy or board a vessel to become a man, then you really weren't a man to begin with. So, what's the difference between then and today? Really nothing. The only difference is today you have feminism versus men. Okay? This is the new propaganda being put forth. And I think a lot of people in the world are beginning to see this application where men are the bad guys, we are the Satan. If you think about it, there was a video on YouTube that, and I kind of like this definition, is think of a woman as a prison. A prison, especially in the modern era, because if you think about it, it's all about money. Okay, so if we look at this, an average jail, an average prison puts forth and receives at least anywhere between 48 mil to $48 billion a year in houses convicts. Okay. Now think about that for just a moment. All right. Because this is going to go right back into folklore. It's going to go right back into Christianity and the difference between heaven and hell. Women really give men no option but to sit there and evolve ourselves. You know what I'm saying? For us, we're more happy being single. We're more happy being, you know, out there with money and evolving through betterment of ourselves, through knowledge, through physical fitness, through our careers. Okay, and this is why, and it's kind of funny because when you think about this, what incentive is there for a man to get married today? Women don't want to work. They don't want to work towards common goals with a man. Okay, because it's always coming down about money, monetary gain. Okay, just like the church, it's always about money. They've always got their hand out trying to take your money. Okay, so let's take a look at this for just a moment, and this is one of the perceptive stances that was put forth. Was, what incentive does a man have to be with a woman, even though you can't find balance and have children to further the species without a woman? And without a man, a woman can't procreate. Okay, she can't multiply, which is her nature. Okay, now keep in mind, I'm not hating on men and I'm not hating on women. Okay, I'm just putting some things forth here. So let's take a look at this. So when a woman realizes that she has a man, she's literally imprisoned him. She's entrapped him. Okay. So it becomes about her wishes, not yours, not common goals. So even if you separate, which let's face it, is roughly about 63% of marriages today end in divorce or differences of relations, okay, be it one form or another. What does a man prosper from this? Absolutely nothing. She takes his home, she takes alimony, child support, his hard earned money, half his belongings. So, what is it that a man prospers here? The truth is, he doesn't. There's no balance factor in today's world. You know, earlier today, I got this message today from this person named Jesse. And she was basically asking for a hookup. I said, all right, whatever, basically not really giving a shit about it. Just wanted her to go away, you know. And she starts asking about money. So I called her a prostitute. Oh, she hated that. That got her knickers in a twist. She says, What do you mean?" So I laid it out for her. I said, "Look at the definition of prostitution. Look at the difference between a woman in a relationship. It used to be about a man and a woman working towards common goals, putting their hard-earned finances towards their family and to the betterment of that family. Women today are just like this. Give me. What can you give me? What can you give me? What can you offer me?" I said, the only difference between the old days and today, especially with today's legal system, is prostitutes don't stand on street corners anymore. They're on every dating app, they're on every hookup app, they're on just about everything, including Facebook and social media platforms. There is, and you're still asking for money. But yet in the same sentence, you just told me you're looking for an honest man to take care of you. To why would a man want to take care of you? Are you not going to take care of yourself? Are you not going to help provide for the family? No. This is all you want. Now go back into the church. I've said this before. I used to hang out with Christianity, Christian divisions. Okay. I'm talking apostolics, Pentecostals, Baptists. Okay. And yes, even some Catholics, even. And it's funny because of the fact that when I was learning to become a minister, I was learning the theurgy of Christianity values. Okay, I learned about the relationships, the three types of relationships. I learned about their history, the way they preach, how they minister, how a man is supposed to be, and how they're supposed to act. How a woman is supposed to be submissive to her own husband, but they work together. She has a job, he has a job. They all have a purpose in a state of balance. Okay. But when he became the pastor of the church, it was no longer that balance factor. He separated himself from the flock, made false promises. Oh, I got to go meet up with this person. I'll be right back. I have a meeting. I'll be right back. And then he'll sneak out the back door. Okay. So I learned about their finances. Every single church gets a tax break because it's considered a religious tax break bracket. So they pay a fraction of what the rest of the world has to pay, financially speaking. But yet they refer to themselves as a non-profit organization. But yet, if you look at this, you have ministers who own their own football stadiums. The Vatican has their own police force, their own military, their own special guards. They have a castle, basically. But yet they're putting down the devil. Well, let's look at this from a logical perspective. After the temptation of Eve, Adam and Eve in the garden, God basically curses the serpent to slither on its belly for all time. First of all, I got to go with John Carlton's perspective on this. Is that not what a serpent does? Does a serpent not slither on its belly to begin with? So why would you sit there and curse a serpent to slither on its belly when that's what it does to begin with? Women are perceived as being prostitutes, whores. Go into Greek for an example. Let's go with the goddess of love herself. In this case, let's look at her, Aphrodite. Let's see, for an example. She's supposedly depicted in lingerie, having men flaunting over her 24/7. She's eating grapes and food, and men are taking care of her and providing for her. She's not doing one thing for herself. Okay, let's kind of look around here for a second. Let's go with a human nature here. Cleopatra, a well-known Greek woman who later became the focal point between two warring kings, the Trojan War, that raged for over a decade after the fall of Troy. Let's go into a more modern perspective of that. Let's go with Eric Bana and that of Brad Pitt. Okay, Orlando Bloom in the movie Troy. In the time that this was supposedly going on, Greece was in turmoil. They were nothing more than warring factions. But one king wanted to control all kings, Agamemnon. Now, don't you think it's kind of interesting that he took advantage of a king that couldn't keep his woman happy? She literally spread her legs for a prince from a different kingdom. In fact, a different country, just to get away from his sorry excuse for a fucking ass. Why? Because he didn't fulfill his manly duties, right? Now, let's go back into folklore. Let's go back into Norse mythology. Let's go into Greek mythology, even. People would join an army to become a man. They were led by the god of war, Ares. Okay. So, a man such as Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, would go off to prove themselves in battle. They would be remembered in song and story. And if they came back victorious, they were known as heroes. Heroes. Interesting. So, but the two figures are God and the devil. The God figure, supposedly supreme. Now, even in the folklore, there's no mention of, outside of their names, of course, Thor's brothers. What about the Titan War against the gods of Mount Olympus? Why don't you hear about them? Why don't you study their names? What they were capable of doing for mankind? Why did that war start? Hmm. How about Odysseus going on an adventure, like Don Quixote, if you will, to prove himself worthy as a man? But yet, if we go into Roman, proto Roman culture, a woman is submissive to her own husband in the tribe. Hmm. In the tribe. Just like in the church today, a woman is submissive unto her own husband. I mean, if we go into Matthew's chapter 19, verse 5, it is said that a man shall leave his mother and his father and cleave unto his own wife, and they shall become one flesh, and basically meaning having a family of their own. Okay? Now, if we go into the book of Tobit, 7 out of 8 brothers died at the hands of Asmodeus, the demon king of desire and wrath. Because why? Because he wanted the woman. Go back into the book of Genesis, and we see where God made himself present to Abram, also known as Abraham. Sarah, his wife, was in the tent, and she giggled. She giggled. That was her crime. And she was disciplined for giggling. Okay. Let's go back to Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden. The serpent tells her, go ahead and eat of it. You will not die, but you will become enlightened. You will become like the gods through knowledge and wisdom. So she turns around after eating it, and she hands it to her husband Adam. Now in comes the big god figure, this jealous god who wants to control everything, keep you all as slaves. Let's look at this for a moment. Hey, Adam, Eve, where the fuck are you? Says the story. Oh, we were ashamed because we were naked, so we had to make fig leaves for ourselves. Well, how do you know you're naked? Oh, she ate of the tree of forbidden fruit, and she gave it to me, basically selling her out, being the snitch, the backstabber. Okay, not being loyal to his wife. Okay, not being loyal to his family. And instead of sticking up for herself, she took the punishment. And that punishment was to leak once a month, basically, being considered impurity. And because of this one sin, all mankind is damned to hell. So, what has really changed in over 2,500 years? What has changed in over 8,000 years? In fact, let's go with since the dawn of time. People have always found a reason to blame each other, to stand apart. They're always looking for an excuse to become greedy. I mean, even in Dante's Inferno, we see how Dante was wrongfully convicted, imprisoned, banished from his home world. He lost his family, he lost his home, his land, his country, his position and status in life. For what? Because a cardinal was greedy, wanted his wife. So religion and reality is basically the same thing. I mean, look at the Dark Pact for an example. Somebody who has been wrongfully imprisoned, somebody who's been wrongfully harmed or accused or attacked, okay, somebody who's lost everything, would make this particular pact out of vengeance. And 9 times out of 10, it's always out of vengeance. It's about expressing your anger, your disbelief. Later on, it became known as the Devil's Pact, Mephistopheles, if you will. It became associated with demonolatry, but pacts have always been associated with mankind, not just that between mankind or practitioners of the arts and that of the gods, the demons, the angels, or whatever, the jinn. They've always had that bond. And what is a pact but a blood oath for service? So, but there was always that union of working together for that common goal. How do you get into Valhalla, into the city of the gods in Norse mythology? You have to die an honorable battle. You have to die a good death just to get into Valhalla. Hmm. Same thing in Greek, Roman, Egyptian. The difference is the stories just simply change little by little, depending on who's telling them. I mean, let's take a look at this for an example. In Christianity, they talk about the throne of Jesus, where he's going to convict you or honor you, basically. But if you actually get into the theurgy and the practices, there's actually 5 thrones, with the great white throne being the one that you don't want to be in front of. Because that means you're going to go to hell, or you're going to go to the heavens. Okay. Let's go to Hades in Greek. You have 2 methods here: heaven and hell, and purgatory right in the center. Even Homer stood at this triumvirate, and he was able to commune with all 3 sides, all 3 of these gateways. Why? Because he was evolving, he was learning, he was performing some form of sorcery to get there. He had made a pact with a siren to learn necromancy, black magic, sorcery. And he went to the underworld, and he stood there and he communed with people from the celestial, purgatory, and hell, the damned. Let's go into Egyptian mythology. Osiris, the god of iniquity. He's the guy with the old school symbolatry, if you will, of justice. Okay, the feather on one side and the gold. Hell, they still use that today in our judicial system. You go to a courtroom, what do you see right there but that scale with the gold on one side and the feather on the other? It's supposed to be like this, balanced, balanced. But yet, if you're guilty, you're not in balance. If you're righteous all the time, you're not balanced. But yet, if you find that balance, that equality, you can go far. It's kind of like pleading guilty to, say, for an example, the North Carolina versus Alfred plea. For an example, if you want to go legalized here, let's go with the Alfonso plea. The Alfonso plea, a victim or a claimed victim could literally turn around and sue you in a civil suit. But yet, if a judge sits there and goes, "Fuck you, I'm not accepting that," but I will accept North Carolina versus Alfred, which basically means they can't turn around and sue you, especially if that's all they're after, is money. Okay? And it's funny because this fits nicely right into this. Because when you're looking at Osiris or the scales, he's judging your iniquity. You're basically damning yourself. You're damning yourself, or you're elevating yourself, right? It's all on you. But if we go with the same depiction and we go into Osiris, how does he, this jackal-headed god of the dead, lord of the crossroads, lord of the dead, the realm of the dead, judge you, but with a human heart in the gold on a scale, doing the exact same thing. Oh, you've lived a good life. You're going up there, but it's that long road to that platform with a big giant portal, a black hole, or a celestial white light effect, because it was known to change and become almost like a thunderstorm before going back and forth between them, the two realms. So, this particular ideology in Norse mythology has really gotten around of having two realms at either side of the spectrum, be it light or darkness. And then in the center, you have what is known as the four soul types. So you have four soul types, and then you got the three spectral points, right? And two realms. Hmm. Two main realms that you can go to. Ironic how that is, the nine realms of Norse mythology. But yet, even if we go into Hermetism, you see the scale between light and darkness, the tree of life and the tree of death. You have the tree of life and death that make up the embodiment of these nine realms. You go into the Necromyicon and you see the gateways to these realms, to the between our realm and all other realms. It is only mankind's perspective on the latest fad that amplifies good or evil. Women can hate talk and shit talk men and take them for every dime, every penny that they have, and leave them with nothing, but it does not make them a woman of value. It makes them just a common whore. Plain and simple. A common whore that you just pay for relations and say, there's the door, don't let it hit you in the ass. But yet, if you want a family, if you want a a life of purpose and meaning, you got to come together in that balance and work together. You can't sit there and have a warring faction in your own backyard. It doesn't matter if you're Christianity or Satanist, because let's look at this for an example. You have all these different denominations claiming to be right, claiming to be right. But how many of these organizations literally come together and look at each other's notes? Where did you, what sources, what references did you find your philosophy in? Now, according to Satanism, it is a path of the individual. But yet you got all these groups of people coming together, forming these temples, these lodges, these churches, living right for a particular god, and yet you're going to sit there, commit atrocities such as murder, rape, adultery. You know, you put all these creeds, all these laws and regulations in play, but yet you're going to violate them no matter what, and then sit there and hope to get into heaven. Hmm. Wow. I'm just saying, it does not matter what philosophy, what religion, it's all the same. Humanity's perspectives, because humanity is the only beings in the cosmos that can take something good and turn it into something vile. Look at the conflict between the Democrats and the Republicans. Just out of an example. Even before Trump became president, they were looking to impeach him. But instead of saying, I want you gone, we don't want you in our house, they played all these games. Throughout his entire term in office, they attacked him, they limited him, they stood against him in what he was trying to do to better this country. He was literally working for the people, not against the people. And he was right about one thing. During his term in office, no other country invaded another country. In fact, there was no attack whatsoever on the American people or any other people for that matter during his reign as president. And that's what they hate the most. That's what they hated him the most for. Because he did what no other president has done. And then when Biden came in, what happened? Inflation. People are up in arms. Cops that are supposed to protect the people are being arrested for crimes, for their wrongdoings. Government officials are being investigated, but yet, even Biden's own family, even Biden's own family is getting off scot-free for the things that they did. Celebrities get off scot-free for the things that they do. Where is the equality about getting into a college when you got somebody rich going, well, I'll give you 10 grand for another wing if you put my child ahead of everybody else's? Okay. Now, you want to uphold the legal system, but yet you yourself, as a peace officer, is going to violate the very laws that you are meant to uphold. You, as a minister, are supposed to be the keeper of your tabernacle, right? But yet you're not going to honor your word. You're going to sleep around. You're going to dishonor your flock and twist the very words of your book into something that it's not. I knew this bishop. His name was Bishop McKillop Sr. He was a bishop out of Prince Edward Island. Years ago when he came in, I thought he was kind of cool. I liked the energy that he brought to the apostolic church, back when I was learning to become a minister. And it was funny because as soon as he started preaching, the first time he preached, it was very, very good. He kept it in line with the scriptures. But then it started being corrupted and it's going into something different. And then he started corrupting the new minister, the man that got me interested in the ministry to begin with as a multi-faith minister. So it was kind of interesting to watch how they were all of a sudden changing the scripture into meaning something different. A family is no longer, now you're allowed to get divorced for numerous reasons. Oh, he's not around. Kick his ass through the fucking door. Or she's stepping out. Guess what? Gone. Okay? Now, if you actually go back into the ancient texts, Hebrew, Jewish, Islamic customs, a woman that wanted out of a relationship can go to their elders and say, here is his slipper or his sock. I wish to leave him. And it would be granted. Today, you can go anywhere. You can go to the Dominican Republic and get a divorce, the DR, for quick, easy divorce. And all you have to do is file a difference of opinion. Now, it's about this bloody feuding like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It's all about money. And that's what it comes down to when it comes to religions, philosophies, and ways of life. There is no balance. So as a practitioner of your religion, it's up to you to uphold that. Ancient European witches and warlocks were known and were viewed as the keepers of the sacred knowledge. They were known as the keepers of the sacred knowledge for a reason. Why do you think these right-hand wing fanatics, these zealots, are looking to exterminate these other practices? They want to take control, complete control. Therefore, knocking things so far out of balance that it's not going to be a balance anymore. They want the knowledge, they want to control it. And it's always about control, be it about women, being about minerals, land, money. He who stands the furthest, the highest tower of skulls sees the furthest. This is the 21 satanic points. A short rest is better than a long. Okay? But even then, it comes down to equality, and it comes down to each individual's personal views. But if this is the way that you want to be, and you want to be chaotic, then that's on you. My newest GM hit me up this morning, and I'm going to read you the text that she sent me, and I want you to understand this. Okay, I brought my phone with me, so let's see here. Uh, okay. Say, all right. So she hit me up this morning and said, "Hey, I just wanted to touch base with you. I never said I didn't want to see you. We will need to clear this up next time we work together." And I said, "Don't have a clue what you're mumbling about, nor do I care. I don't get time for people's drama," which is true. So she texted back and said, I'll explain it later. Not meant for you." Ah, so I said, okay. So you see, this is basically what I'm talking about with today's people living in chaos in chaotic times where things are out of balance. There's an old expression in witchcraft that you have to master what's within you before you can master what's outside. Okay? As we, even in the Bible, Jesus said, and I quote, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, and when I became a man, I spoke as one." Okay? Now, what is the embodiment of being a man? What is it? What is the embodiment of being a god, right? You have to earn your stature. You have to earn your stripes. It is the same thing with a woman. Okay? Look at the Amazons. Some of the most brazen women ever. But yet, even they still needed a man to continue their family lineage. Okay? So, even then, you see that balance factor of men and women coming together to further that family line or that religion and that balance. So, you can sit there and say, well, Hera, the almighty queen of the gods, was a jealous god, killing off the family and tormenting the children, the bastardized children of Zeus. Well, in stepping on his toes as well. Well, you're just demonizing somebody that had a right to feel the way that they felt. Okay, it would be the same thing with Zeus. Get it? Let's say for an example, Odin becoming involved with, say for an example, a human woman. Let's look at a TV show called Xena from the '90s, starring Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor. Now, one of her historical moments was that she starred as a Valkyrie. She was updated to a Valkyrie and corrupted that god, the Almighty God, the Father of the gods himself, Odin. Okay, in this TV show. But if you actually look at it, how did Grenhilda become that hideous monster? She was cursed into that being, right? Because her child was murdered. And supposedly she had a child with Odin. But yet, no matter what depiction of the devil that you want to go with, you have the image of Loki, the trickster in Norse mythology. He who has the horned helmet, okay? The scepter, or the pitchfork, if you will. You go to Egyptian mythology, you have Set or Seth. He's the ruler of the land of fire, basically. Hell, if you will. You go into Greek mythology, you have the god of fertility himself who watches and plays the flute for the nymphos, half man, half goat. Now look at the very embodiment of Satan. But yet, in the Bible, if you look at Satan, he was originally a Gorgori, according to angelology. A Gorgori, he was the chief of the angels of the Gorgori, the first rate angels. They were a race of warrior class. Lucifer, on the other hand, was an archangel who was corrupted by pride, associated with Venus. Hmm, interesting. And when you get into Latin, he becomes a child, a pure image. Hmm. But yet, men and women only succeed when they work together. Doesn't matter if you're into the gods, if you're into the Sith, the Sadi, if you will, depending if you're into Irish or Swedish folklore, people of the mountains. Even if you get into the Elven folklore, you see men and women. You know, if you go into no matter what gods and goddesses that you want to relate to, there's always that female notion. Be it, let's take Lilith for an example in demonolatry. She was considered to be the wife of Satan. Okay, but yet here she's also seen today throughout all the texts, such as the Zohar, the Jewish Haggadah, the Talmud, and so forth, and these old texts as being a consort, meaning prostitute, whore, as being associated with the venom of God himself, Samael, and that of Satan. Okay, and today's Luciferian practices, she is associated with Lucifer. So you have to know the backdrop of these originating figures that you want to speak on to have a true sense of where they come from and where they hail from. And yes, I just utilized a Nordic terminology there, hail from. Okay, but that's why I chose this particular um, figure in this video, was because of the fact that even no matter, just to show you that this overall god started out with good intentions before becoming this overall bastardized deadbeat father figure who is jealous that his children are succeeding without him. But even then, that corruption is brought down into modern human standards. Standards. Why do you think we have all this segregation? Race, creed, even play into it. All this hate, and yet you want to talk love in the same perspective. The author of the Cabal, or the Quran rather, literally, if you look at the author of the Quran itself, over 1,000 years ago when it was originally written, was one based off tolerance. It was based off peace, coexistence. And yet now you have all these terror cells thinking it's about suicide, it's about domination. You got the Jewish controlling all the businesses, the finances. You have women thinking they're better than men. So now you got gender roles playing into it. You've got so much unbalanced aspects. You got race against race, blacks against everybody else. You got whites against whites. You got Latinos doing their thing, and it's like, where's the peace? Where's the harmony that we're supposed to have? Are we not supposed to be living in a time of enlightenment where knowledge is literally at our fingertips. So why are you not learning? Why are you not growing? Why are you not evolving? Are you afraid to be an individual? Are you afraid to go against society? Fearing that you're going to be hated? What's the difference between being hated by society and being hated for somebody by somebody that you called friend? The truth is, there's no difference between it. You're just looking for an excuse to follow a norm, a fad, to belong to something. That's it. It's only when you decide to step away from society because you've had enough, and you start learning history and you start learning folklore, folkology. You're looking at archaeology, anthropology practices, and all this other fun stuff, that you realize just how far down in the dumps this culture today has really come to. Christians look at pagans and go, "You're so stupid. Why didn't you write things down?" The thing they failed and were jealous about was the fact that through pagan cultures, such as the Druids, was more vocal, just like the Saxons, the Vikings. It was a living embodiment of the culture. It, if you wrote it down, that was the end of that story. Only through constant development can you continue to evolve. If you look at the stories and the myths that were written, that were put into place through history and after the domination of the JCI, you notice just how much that these old school practices were so much more richer. They were much more full of life, harmony, even. It was a balance. Witches and warlocks, men and women were the keepers of the secret tomes. They were the sacred knowledge, the wisdom. Even if you go into the Shem priesthood, you look at the different denominations within that priesthood, they had their own responsibilities. But yet, everything's so far out of balance today. Today, they are so out of balance that not one person is going to step back and go, "Hey, you're not worth it to me. You're not worth it to me. You're not worth my time. My time is valuable to me. And you're wasting my time by putting forth money, your prices to, for what? To bring you into my home and sleep with me for 30 minutes only to hit the trail?" No. Or how about sending a man off to war so you can bet his wife, like King David did? How about the Pharisees putting down the prostitute in the Gospels, who recognized Jesus of Nazareth as the Son of God? She literally humbled herself, kneeling at his feet, and washed his feet. The Pharisees didn't stick up for that woman. No, it was Jesus who did that. Jesus even said, "Don't turn away little children." But yet you got all these ministers now becoming sex offenders. You got all these ministers making it all, turning their backs on their own flocks, because it's all about this. Just like it was back in the time of the Pharisees. If you ask me, your Ragnarok is already coming down on your heads, and you're too stupid and too blind to see it. You're destroying yourselves, and you don't see it. You're too prideful. You're too haughty, arrogant, just like these feminist types. They hate it because men just greet them when they go to work. They don't want nothing to do with them. Go to the gym, they won't even help you. Why? Because you degrade them. You've become sexist. Think you're better, not equal. And it's always about money. My ex, the only time she comes to me and wants anything to do with me is when it's about money or it's about our son. The rest of the time, I don't hear one goddamn thing from her. But yet, after the breakup, she posted point blank, "Oh my God, such a relief to be out of this toxic relationship." Wow, so toxic. You went to work, you came home, you slept the rest of the time. I'm the one that took care of our son. I'm the one that made sure he was fed, dressed, and went to school. Wow, picked him up, had a place to go. I'm the one paying all the fucking bills. You sit there and cheat on me 3 times, with two of which were former friends. One was another guy that I don't really like. He didn't like me either, so it's feeling mutual. And yet you piss away all your money on a man that's supposedly worth 1.5 million. Wow, how is that not a scam? But yet that's okay. But you're not going to put your money towards the family and work with me, to work with the man to for a common goal. No wonder the world is so fucked up. No wonder it's not. In the old days, men and women fought alongside each other. Back in the 1950s, a man could easily afford to work and provide for his family. Women were the nurturers and the caregivers, the homemakers. And if you look at the very embodiment of what a woman represents, she's a multiplier. You give her a bag of groceries, she'll multiply it into a finely cooked meal. You place your seed in her, she multiplies the family and gives you children. You give her boards, nails, she will make a home. Again, multiplying. Now, who gives you that material? A man. What does a woman give a man? A home, a family, meals. Helps with the finances, helps with the bills. Equality, right? So, why, even in today's society, do we, as humanity, create segregation between the gods and mankind, or mankind and women? Why does it have to be about race, skin color? Why does it have to be about the entire community when the crimes of one person should be on that person's head? Down south, there was a kid that drew a gun on a police officer. The entire community rose up and they had a riot. A riot. It wasn't about that kid pulling a gun on an officer who was trying to arrest him. That was the crime. But humanity made it about the community, not about the crime itself. It wasn't about the evidence. Again, we go back into the symbolatry of the scale, the gold, the feather, the human heart versus the gold. Your iniquity is why the world is the way it is today. So, That's on you. So eventually you're going to get to that point where somebody, the world's drama, can go take a fucking hike. Want nothing to do with it. You can sit there and wonder, well, I'm in my 40s. I have no husband. Why can't I get a man to be with me? Why won't the gods answer my pleas? Why are the demons not helping me with my practices? Well, first of all, did you give back to them? Did you form that relationship and work with them for common goals? They help you, you help them. Did you give that offering, that sacrifice? No. Did you give it time to manifest into something better? No, you didn't. Again, narrow minded views. It's always about you. It's always about that fad, that latest event that's going on. It's not about truth. It's not about elevating yourself to a higher standard. No. So when I was sitting here just reading about the 9 realms and I got to this point, it was like, you know what? This is when things were so simplistic. This is when it was so simplistic. You had the unnamed God coming in, doing his creation thing, creating the land of the dead for a place for the souls to go. All those that wanted to worship demons or the jinn or the elven or the giants or whatever had their own realms to go to, so they were happy. They coexisted in peaceful harmony until one dumb motherfucker decides to get jealous, gets a hair across their ass. I want to fucking dominate. Look at the swastika for an example, a prime example. This was associated with alchemy, the occult, for hundreds of thousands of years. And it only took one person, Adolf Hitler, who used it in a formation of hatred. And now it's called a symbol of hate. Oh, you can't post anything on that. Oh, you can't use that because that's a symbol of hate. That's a symbol that people use for religious hate crimes. Do you even know the history of this symbol? Do you even know including the Golden Dawn, used it? Occultists, spanning back over 1,000 years, have used that symbol. It was associated with alchemy as well. It has over a dozen different names. But you wouldn't know that because all you see is that symbol of hate. That's as far as you know. That's the extent of your knowledge. The cross, be it verted or inverted. The pentagram, verted or inverted, associated with good or evil. Nobody realized that St. Peter wanted to die on an inverted cross through his crucifixion. When he was crucified, he wanted to die invertedly. Why? Because he didn't feel he was worthy to die in the same fashion as his God. Wow. Imagine that. I'm so loyal to my God. I don't want to die in the same fashion as him, but I will honor him with my life by staying pure, even if it means my death. I'll die on the cross, but it's not going to be the same way he did. St. Peter did that. Amazing, isn't it? But yet, you look at how many people are willing to work with demons. They've had great results, but yet people knock demons, saying they're evil. They're agents of Satan. And then you got Christians saying, well, all these facets, all these names, they're nothing more than Satan taking these forms. Do you even know where these origins came from? Do you even know what these beings can do for you? No, because you're cutting off all realms to force your realm on the world. How is that not a religious hate crime? Think about that for just a moment. I want you to think about that honestly. Because since Christianity took over, we've had genocide, just like their God, flooding the earth. You've got rape, murder, country against country. We've got weapons now that it only takes a push of a fucking button to annihilate an entire culture instead of riding on horseback into an armada of soldiers. There's no honor anymore. There's no integrity anymore. There's segregation against classes. The rich get away with everything. Literally, they get away with murder. Poor get poorer. The middle class struggles to even keep their head above water. Does the government care? No. Do the people care? No. They're too wrapped up in their own selves, their own drama. They even begin to realize that you have to know, you have to will yourself to even dare to know these things, to step out of the shadow of whatever's going on and say, hey, I want nothing to do with this. You have to be the one to put your foot down and say, no more. You want to evolve? Pick up a fucking book and read. Get on your laptop, your computer. Go to your local library and delve into the world mythologies, folklore. I can guarantee it that you're going to learn things that you never thought possible. And when you go to apply it to your practices, whew, doggy. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to better you. And you're going to sit there and go, why was I so fucking haughty? Why was I this way when I was just practicing this? No, the best thing I ever did was leave Satanism behind and became a necromancer. Since I've been a necromancer, my knowledge has tripled. There are things that I had no freaking clue even existed out there through folklore. I mean, I've traced necromancy from ancient Egypt right up through the Middle East and through the world. Amazing. And I've traced it back to the 6th century BC. BC. From medical practices to shamanism to the occult, the hexa, the agi, the strega, the stragoi, even if you're into vampiric practices, such as hemomancy, phlebotomy today, alchemy, chemia. So much is lost on today's culture, and you call yourselves enlightened. But yet, when somebody's actually trying to enlighten you, you piss on them. Yeah, humanity, the world changes and humanity stays the same. Until humanity is ready to evolve, well, nothing's going to change except for the world, except for the universe. So, with that said, I'm getting off here. All right. Have a good day. I want to thank LK for jumping on here with me, and I did see you jump in a while back. Just wanted to point that out. Glad to see you here. And remember two things. Whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources, and always make yourself available to the public because you are responsible for the things you say and do. No one else. All right? Keep those horns up, people. Have a good one.